Hello everyone, welcome to another ArtGraft product review. This is one of 3 sets that I bought recently, the primary color set, the earth color set, and this is the monochromatic set. Here we have carbon black, water-soluble graphite, and white. I'll be comparing the graphite with this water-soluble graphite in the tin form, also made by the same company, Viarco. This is of course more convenient because it comes in a smaller package and there is a tin for it. I have already reviewed the other colors in their separate videos, so if you want to check them out, the link is in the video description below. So let's start by creating a swatch for this graphite. So you can see the sheen on the surface of this block already. That's the very classic graphite sheen. So you can get a very nice even wash of graphite. To get a darker wash, you do have to spend a bit more time to dissolve this graphite. This does not dissolve as easily compared to the colored blocks. So now we have a slightly darker wash. Compared to the solid graphite in the tin, this, as you can see, this dissolves way more easily. Let's dilute this. And the graphite here, you can see the texture, it's more obvious. And here it's a bit more patchy. It would depend on your, whether or not it's patchy would also depend a lot on your technique, of course. And now let's try carbon black. This color is also included in the earth tone set, so this dissolves a lot more easily. And this is very black compared to, this is even darker compared to the water-soluble graphite. And let's see how this looks when it's diluted. So when it's diluted, it looks a bit like graphite. And now let's color the sketch. So for this sketch, I will be mixing a huge puddle of graphite to paint over the buildings and then go over with carbon black for the shadows. For the white, we'll see whether or not it's opaque enough. So as you can see, this wash, it's really light. This graphite block doesn't really dissolve that easily. So it's actually a bit difficult to use it like a normal watercolor pen. So maybe let's draw with it or scrape some of the graphite onto the paper. I'm going to try it here. So this is quite convenient for covering a large area. And you can see the texture of this watercolor paper quite clearly. I hope this dissolves readily. If not, the texture is going to be quite distracting. Alright, let's try again. It does dissolve a bit more readily compared to me using the brush on the graphite. But I do see the texture of the graphite on the paper. I still see the graphite texture on the paper. I mean the watercolor paper texture. So this is a better way to use this graphite compared to just running the brush over the graphite. Let me try and dissolve the graphite that's on the paper more completely, more thoroughly. So if you want to use water-soluble graphite, I actually recommend you use the one in the tin versus the graphite block. This is almost dry. Let's take a closer look before I paint with black carbon. So for this part here, I applied solid graphite on the paper before dissolving it with a brush. It doesn't dissolve completely unless you want to go over it a lot of times, in which case you should use better paper. So this wash here, this is the graphite that I have dissolved from this area, and we can get a very flat, nice wash here, as well as here, which is very nice. I like this shade of graphite. On the other side, you can see the solid graphite again, mixed with the graphite wash. Some watercolor paper has a very noticeable pattern on it, so it may not look nice with graphite or even watercolor. And now let's paint the shadows. So the carbon black dissolves very readily, so be careful not to get too much pigment on the brush, or this whole part will just become black. So maybe I can make this a bit darker. This carbon black, it seems to work nicely with this graphite. So we have the shadow coming down at an angle like this. If you want to make the shadow darker, if you want to make areas black, you can just dissolve more of the carbon. Let me try and paint this in one stroke rather than so many strokes. If not, it's going to look a bit patchy. I have too much water there, so this part here, oops. So this part here is supposed to be a straight line, but the water flowed down. So let me use this eraser, this soft kneaded eraser, to see if I can pick up the graphite. So it seems like I can pick up some of the graphite, but it's very difficult. So this is, I would say you can consider this to be permanent when dry. And also, even if I pick up the graphite, I am not going to be able to get this sharp line. So maybe I can paint over it again. So let me try painting over this with this brush, and now I can sort of blend this upwards. Earlier while I was painting, I thought this wet area, it was quite dark, but when it dried, it actually dried much lighter. So you do need some time to get used to how light it will dry. The second wash is now dry, so if you want to have the carbon black appear as like really dark black, you have to use a lot of paint and keep it concentrated. Don't use so much water. Because when I compare this carbon black to the water-soluble graphite, you can see this is actually darker compared to carbon black. So it's actually easier to get a concentrated dark value of black with the water-soluble graphite in the tin compared to the carbon black block. And now I'm going to test the white. I'm going to draw some vertical lines here using the sharp edge of this block. This is one way to get some texture. So let me draw here as well. Now as you draw with the edge, it's going to get blunt, so you have to find some way to sharpen it again if you want the thin lines. And now let's see if this is opaque. If not, then I don't see any reason to get this white block. Good news, it looks opaque enough, which is great. So now I can use this to create some highlights over darker colors, darker values. This is actually quite opaque. Let me dilute that and see if I can paint some bricks. This works best, I think, against darker values. Here it's not so obvious, and also when I paint over the black lines, you see the white actually covers the black lines. So in this case here, I probably shouldn't have drawn the bricks with black lines. Probably shouldn't have drawn with the black lines. It looks better with white against the gray wash behind. So this is the completed sketch painted using this monochromatic set. I think it works very nicely. For the graphite, it's best to apply it hard on the paper first before dissolving it, because if you are using a brush to dissolve it like that, you are going to get a very light wash. It's very difficult to get a much darker wash like this. And for the carbon black, I think it works nicely for painting shadows, for painting darker values. And the white really is quite nice. It does a nice job at bringing out the highlights and creating some extra contrast to draw your eyes to certain little details here and there. This set is great for quick tonal studies. This water-soluble graphite and carbon black, they are quite transparent, so they are great for use with pen and ink. You can overlay over the ink and the ink will still show through very nicely. Now, if you want to have some fun with colors, you can consider the earth tone set. Now, this earth tone set also comes with carbon black. So, well, in this case, maybe you may not need this. You can go with this tin set. But the white is actually quite good to have because it's very opaque and hence quite convenient when it comes to touching up and creating highlights. That's about it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. If you are interested to get a set for yourself, you can check out the affiliate links in the video description below. And any purchases made through those links, I earn some commission at no extra cost to you. That's how I make such videos on my YouTube channel. So thanks in advance for your support. Alright, see you guys in the next video. Bye.